Wisconsin, guess what? We did it. We did it. Throughout my career, I've seen our judicial system up close. And I believe in something that is universal to Wisconsinites all across our state. And that is that everyone should get a fair shot to demand justice and not feel like the thumb is on the scale against them.
You just heard from the Democratic-backed Janet Protasiewicz, who defeated right-wing judge Dan Kelly and won a critical seat in the Wisconsin Supreme Court, giving progressives their first majority on the court since 2008. The importance of this cannot be overstated because of what the future could have led to, right? With a right-wing judge getting voted in instead. So no, Dan Kelly was unilaterally appointed to the Wisconsin Supreme Court back in 2016 by then Governor Scott Walker, but he luckily lost his seat in 2020. Now her victory is of huge significance. Why? Well, here are a few examples. A new progressive majority on the Wisconsin Supreme Court could strike down the heavily gerrymandered maps that have locked in enormous Republican majorities in the legislature and a series of laws that have made it harder to vote. But there's even more to that. Here's how this progressive win can affect another issue. The court could also reverse unpopular laws, like an 1849 abortion ban that the legislature refuses to repeal. A shift in the court removes the threat that conservatives could use their majority to overturn the 2024 election. And by the way, another really important thing to know about her is that she is pro-labor. So Protasiewicz, whose Supreme Court bid was backed by labor unions, said during the campaign that she believes Act 10, a Wisconsin law backed by Walker that gutted public employees' collective bargaining rights, is unconstitutional. I remember covering that, so long ago when they did away with collective bargaining rights. And it just feels so good to come back to this story and hear from a progressive who might be able to weigh in on that and change labor laws in that state.
Yeah, there's like 5 distinct ways already that this is incredibly important. I don't know if the fifth that I'm thinking of, I think you might have mentioned it, but that's around the 2020 election and the 2024 election.
Exactly.
I'm sure we'll talk about that. That's going forward really important, but it's also already critically important for the people of Wisconsin. This is the only potential path to overturning that 1849 law. Kelly was never gonna do it. And I know a lot of people, they believed that she was being very uncouth during this election because she was actually like saying what she believes and at least implying sometimes saying what she would do, which is very novel for judicial elections. Generally, you're supposed to just like not say anything in public. To the donors, you tell them exactly what they need to hear. To the party apparatus is gonna support you, you tell them exactly what you're gonna do. But to the voters, they're supposed to just like read your old blogs and like hope that they can come to a conclusion about who you are for like a 10-year term that's hugely important. So I'm glad that she just came out and said what her actual positions were. Thankfully, his positions were very clear. You just had to do a little bit of digging to figure them out.
Yeah, in fact, why don't we talk about that right now? Sure. So her Republican opponent was Dan Kelly, of course. Kelly was backed by prominent election deniers and funders of the insurrection who wanted to see a MAGA takeover of one of the nation's most important state courts. Kelly's campaign was notably supported by the GOP billionaire mega donors, Richard and Elizabeth Yulin, who have worked to dismantle union rights nationwide. Wisconsin progressives are celebrating this as a clear rejection of MAGA politics. This election was a sound rejection of MAGA extremism, including their attacks on the freedom to vote and the right to access abortion care. The people of Wisconsin spoke through the ballot box and their message was undeniable. MAGA extremism has no place on our court and neither does Dan Kelly. And by the way, final thing I'll say on this is it's not just a rejection of MAGA republicanism. It's also a rejection of what republicanism has always been, or has been in modern politics, which is anti-labor, anti-worker, anti-women, anti-ordinary people.
Anti-democracy.
Anti-democracy, right? The efforts to do away with collective bargaining rights happened well before Donald Trump ran for president in 2016. So don't let Donald Trump's terrible rhetoric, launder the reputation of what the Republican Party was prior to him. It was still pretty awful.
Yeah, in particular there. I mean, there are a number of different state legislatures controlled by Republicans that have been competing for the last 15 years or so to see who could be the most openly opposed to democracy. And I think you could have a really interesting debate about which one has been worse. Some of the moves, on the East Coast, stripping incoming Democratic governors of their powers, that's pretty crazy. A lot of what's happened in Florida, pretty crazy. Overturning ballot initiatives that have passed in a number of states, that's crazy. But what Wisconsin has done, when we say that like the map is gerrymandered, you probably think, oh yeah, no, I mean all of America is gerrymandered. Yes, almost all of America is gerrymandered. Not like Wisconsin. It is bananas in Wisconsin. You can win a clear majority of the vote statewide in Wisconsin and get less than 40% of the seats in the legislature.
It's crazy.
They have I believe it's a 22-11 split towards Republicans in the state Senate. Democrats have won 13 out of the last 16 statewide elections. They just keep winning and winning and winning, and it doesn't matter because the maps are set up in a way that they will never control the state legislature until it changes. Also, by the way, the congressional delegation, I think, is 6-2, which does not, it's a 50-50 split state that leans slightly Democrat. It's 6-2 to the Republicans for the congressional delegation. That's a gap of 4, by the way. The Republicans only have a 5-seat advantage in the House nationwide. Almost the entirety of the national congressional advantage on the Republicans can be drawn just from Wisconsin.
It's crazy.
And that could potentially change with her in charge, assuming she actually gets to keep her seat.
So we have a lot to look forward to, obviously a lot to celebrate about today with the progressive mayoral win in Chicago and now this incredibly important Supreme Court win in Wisconsin. But I wanna leave you with something to savor even more, which is Dan Kelly's tears, because he gave a pretty salty speech after losing. I wanna watch it.
I wish that in a circumstance like this, I would be able to concede to a worthy opponent. But I do not have a worthy opponent to which I can concede. This was the most deeply deceitful, dishonorable, despicable campaign I have ever seen run for the courts. Yes. It was truly beneath contempt. My opponent is a serial liar. Yes. She's disregarded judicial ethics. Yes. She's demeaned the judiciary with her behavior. And this is the future that we have to look forward to in Wisconsin.
That was delicious.
Yeah.
That was so tasty.
You gotta love the cope from not just him, but the people in the crowd are like, yup. Yeah. And then you go home, you lost the election. Sorry. I mean, I hope you enjoyed your yas or whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, I gotta be honest, the audience didn't seem too fired up.
No, they weren't they lost. They're depressed.
Yeah, they should be.
They 100% should be. So yeah, all of his allusions to her, like she demeaned the judiciary. She had no ethic. Why? Because she said what she believes. And she let people know what you believe. The dude, everybody knows that one of the main issues people are gonna vote based on is what is the future of abortion access in the state. And so you keep asking him, how are you gonna weigh in on that? And as every Republican justice ever has, they say, oh, I don't know, I'll just figure it out. And then they all vote against it. He had written blog posts about the evils of abortion and sexual libertinism. Everybody's just too free with their sexuality. But then as soon as he's running in this race, I have no idea. I'm just going to consult with these many leather-bound books. I'm not biased in any way. And she's the dishonest one. You're pretending like you don't have a history of running blog posts attacking people for trying to exercise reproductive rights.
Yeah, and by the way, I mean, the election denial folks who funded your campaign didn't fund your campaign because of your wonderful political leanings. They've supported him for a reason.
Well, they seemed to know what his position was.
Exactly.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.